Whew. I am coming up on, I want to put this beautiful. I am coming up on the eve of a very patient day. I can stop in this moment and just say thank you, God, thank you, Yah. Gracious Elohim, thank you for your generosity. Something about where I am in life in this moment right here just made me want to stop and reflect on the fact that somewhere in the midst of all of this, I just decided and I didn't want to do it my way anymore. And not so much so that I haven't recognized that in the past, or that I haven't, relinquished to God in the past, but more so that I feel like right now what's going on in my life is saying that I have surrendered completely. Even more so than ever before. I've always trusted God. I believe in the Christ-centered gospel. I believe that God sent his only son to come to model for us and give us an example of who we were designed to be. Such a beautiful sight that it scared people so much that they wanted to nail God's perfect example to the cross. I get it. Because I've been in situations in my life where I'm standing in front of somebody and in leadership and integrity, modeling the way that it should be done, and I've been lied on, beat down, persecuted, because it's scary. It's scary to see that what you believe to be true in an attempt to prove that humans are inherently bad is then shattered by the holy reality that flows through me and those who believe that humans are designed to be inherently good. I didn't get it. I didn't get it when I was younger. I did not. I held on to my faith, but I didn't have it this deeply. And I recognize in this moment what it was all about this entire time. An attempt to prove to people, and sometimes for even those people to try to prove to me you're wrong. You don't get to be right, because if you're right, then that changes the game. It changes the standard. It raises the bar. It makes people who allowed mediocrity to come through say, now hold on, wait a minute now. We was wrong. There is better. Let's get better. I was reading a journal entry that I did back in December, which just in my everyday living, that seems like that was so long ago. And I think it's just because I've gotten to the point in my life where I've learned how to let go easier. I'm about to read something that I wrote about detachment, and this is going to segue into that. But life seemed a whole lot slower. It seemed like it moved a whole lot slower when I didn't know how to let go of things. I had such a sharp memory to remember all of the things, both good and bad, both right and wrong. Believe it, for so long that I could count the days ahead and the days behind, and I did not realize how that was just slowing me down. And I would hear so many people with a different mindset and the way they approached information and living in life, and I just didn't understand it at that moment. I'm like, how do y'all just get up and roll through the day, don't be thinking about a thing, just I remind you of something you said and you be like, when did I say that? I used to always admire people who used to be like, girl, I have slept 5 days since then. I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, okay, if I said it, then I said it. But you know, it's too much to carry. I recognize now that that's essentially what they were conveying. That's the message that radiated off of them. That's what they wanted me to understand in explanation, but what they understood in reward. It's just too much to carry it. It's too much to carry yesterday's problem. It's too much to carry what just happened 1 minute ago. Everything I said when I started this video, it is too much to carry for me to try to remember it later on down the line. I can keep it as a memory, but it's still too much to carry. It should be simply that, just a memory. It shouldn't be a data point. It shouldn't be information. You shouldn't have to write it down and journal it every single day so you don't ever forget what somebody said or did. But I understand where all of that came from when it came to me. I find myself running away from circles where my existence is the collective representation. I find myself running away from social circles where there's other Black women who can relate to me, women who look like me, for two reasons. One, over time, I have seen the nastiest sides of them be abusive towards me. And the second part of it is that it's just kind of counterintuitive and not counterintuitive, it's just kind of counterproductive to know that you are oppressed and go and involve yourself in a representatively collective group of other people who share your same oppression. In other words, we ain't getting nowhere. We ain't getting nowhere. I think before I knew the latter, I made decisions based off of the former, and so I always wanted to put myself in circles where if there was going to be some oppression in the group, it was just going to be me. That would work against me as well, because if you've ever been in an experience where competence proves that you are worthy, but your oppression proves that you should wait, your oppression proves that you don't deserve, your oppression proves otherwise and everything other than worthy, you feel it. So as a Black woman, you start to question and wonder, where do I go? What do I do? Now, we living in a time where DEI is being rolled back, and that's all cool. You know, it is what it is. I was one of the people who felt like before any of this became a real thing, that DEI needed to be looked into a little further. I didn't feel like it needed to be fully rolled back, but I would learn through conversation with an old classmate that a lot of people often view my political take as more moderate, which is great because, you know, I self-proclaim myself the fair lady. Me and Snow White gonna have to fight for the title. Okay, so look, I'm saying all of this to basically say that it is so difficult to navigate sometimes systematically, because you do have to almost always have a record of what's going on, because in a moment's notice, without notice, you can find yourself being in somebody's narrative as a pawn, as a throwaway piece. And because I know about chess, a pawn is not a bad thing, right? But it depends on the purpose in which it's being used. And a lot of times as a Black woman, you are expected to take the moral high road. I've learned as a Black woman, the only moral high road that I can take is Christianity, because I'm expected to allow people to do what they want to do and respond in a Christian-like manner. Anything else beneath that, and that's not me shitting on religion or anything, that's just me saying, if I act beneath the standard of high moral integrity in all situations, whether I'm right or wrong, whether I have the right to or not, anything less than that, and I'm gonna be moved around and shifted around in somebody's story as the villain, because systematically I'm a Black woman, and then you add on top of that I'm a fat Black woman, and then you add on top of that during a time where everybody is liberal and progressive, I'm a straight fat Black woman, and then you add on top of that I am a Christian straight fat Black woman. Well, girl, where do I win? Used to be a time where some of that shit would at least, you know, get me a little bit of footing in life and take me out of oppression a little bit, but here we are. because I know enough about politics, I know that the climate change and things of that nature, right? And I also know that yes, there may have been a time where I could have rummaged through all of those identities that I just presented, and been able to pick some of the things out that would have benefited me. But even with that, it was always a race to the finish. It wasn't necessarily guaranteed that me being a Christian or straight was going to guarantee me anything, because there were only so many spots. And again, it was always a race to the finish. I've always been in a race. Financially, I'm in the rat race. In terms of being black, I'm in the race. And in the example that I just gave you, when finally there were opportunities for me to be rewarded for my high ethical standard, my high ethical moral practices, there was a race to the finish. It was about who could get there first. And sometimes I was held back for being a statistic in the system, being a product of 2 teenage parents. Now, not a tragic statistic. Granny stepped in and helped a whole lot. Thank God we had a village, and thank God we had community, because me up against a black woman with high moral ethics and integrity would put me in place to get the gold on the podium. But me next to a let me say that again. Me next to a woman who identifies all the ways that I identify, but maybe was in the foster system, would lose next to me. But me standing next to another black woman who identifies the same way I do, who were born to parents who were a little bit older, a little bit more financially stable, and a little bit more mature when they had them, was able to give them a different type of life than what I was able to experience, I lose that to her. And if there's only one fight and it's 2 of us, and I'm not in the advantageous position, it's a race to the finish. So I'm saying all this to basically say, I totally understand why over the years life has moved at a slow pace for me until I was able to let go, because a lot of what I did was for survival. I had to remember things that people did to me. I had to remember things that people said to me. I had to figure out ways to collect evidence and collect data and collect information and collect witnesses about the way that about the way that people treated me and what people did to me, because if I didn't, I would not have survived. It's not that the system is against anybody. It's just about knowing that you have to be able to position yourself to where even if the system is against you, you win. There's a bigger system that oversees this system. And that's God, and that's Christ, and that's the Elohim, and that's Yahweh. That's all of the things that are superior above this system that's created and flawed, because man created it, and man is flawed. And you have some people who understand that everybody is inherently good working on a part of the system, but you have a majority of people who believe that people are inherently bad working on a larger part of the system. And so you get in where you fit in, and you don't really even have a choice of how you got in and where you fit in, but you just got to figure that shit out as you go. And so I'm at the point in my life where I can let go of a lot of things now, and I can say, okay, whatever's happening right now, let me just accept it. There's a bigger plan. Now, I'm wise enough to know now that it's important for me to create a stability and an ecosystem and routines that support me, so that I never have to be in a situation of being controlled or shackled by a bunch of people who don't believe in me or believe in the same things that I believe in. That's really the worst thing that I've learned in life that can happen to you. It's not about what you believe or what you choose to do or which way you choose to go or which path you choose to take. If you're just around a bunch of people who don't agree with what you believe in, or you don't agree with what they believe in, there's going to be a lot of turbulence and obstacle and chaos along the way. I think you have a moment in life where you get to address that, and then that becomes real to you, so then you have to make a move. And oftentimes that puts you in the wilderness trying to figure out how we get into the promised land. And then once all of that happens, you go through the processes of life, you accept what it is, and then at that point you realize, I'm cool with whatever you believe in. I just need to have a safe place to go if we don't agree. We can all exist in harmony if we just all have a safe place to go when we don't agree. But in the process of learning all of this and figuring all this out, I've been really doing my best to be upright and erect in this area of my life of saying, I am morally upstanding. I haven't gone through all of this for nothing. I haven't experienced all this stuff for nothing. I can be honest and say at some points it felt that way, but I haven't experienced all this stuff for nothing. And it is my moral ethics and integrity that has proven to me that none of this is in vain. And it's like every time you get to that point where you realize that more abundance flows and you just live more free, and you just be like, man, this is why y'all can't tell me God is not real. This is why y'all can't tell me that Jesus Christ is not real. This is why y'all can't take my faith away from me. Because me and Big Y'all, we so locked in. Me and Jesus Christ, we so locked in. That it's really hard. It's really hard to get me not to believe. And there would have been a time where I would have been scared to say that, because, you know, superstitiously growing up in the church, it's like, oh, don't say things out loud, because if people hear it, or, you know, if the vibrations hear it, then, you know, here comes the enemy working against you. Well, the Bible teaches us how to keep the enemy from working against us. The Bible also teaches us not to live in fear. So that lets me know that I can enjoy my life in wisdom and in freedom, and say things that give praise and worship to the Creator, to the Holy One, to the Almighty. And I don't have to fear anything, because I know how to protect that. And while it has been a journey, here we are. Okay, I'm gonna read this little writing, and then I'm gonna hop on up here, because this was only supposed to be 15 minutes anyway. So here we go. Okay. I feel like I said something about Great American Cookie, and I was going to say something about that because I was reading about something about a time when I was working at Great American Cookie, but I might have already said it. If I didn't, it's not necessary, because I'm going to read this writing. I'll listen back to it, and maybe I'll talk about it at a later time. But the name of this, I wrote this on April 27th. It's called Sobriety and Detachment, and Sobriety in general. Bear with me, because sometimes I can't read my own writing, but I'm reading this in real time since I wrote it, so that's always fun. Excuse me. Sorry. Sorry. I'm such a dork. Okay, it says 2 statements, packed and powerful. Detachment is hard. Sobriety is hard. I don't think they are hard by definition. I believe they're hard in action. Both yield the best results. I know that because there's old wisdom and evidence that says so. What's difficult, or hard rather, about detachment and sobriety is the emotions. But I've come to realize that the hardest part of the most beneficial processes in life is the greatest measurement of progress in the journey. I'm in the flow of both simultaneously. Part of the reason that I joke at times and say that I may be a bit of a masochist, because who would selectively choose to detach and be sober at the same time but a masochist? But at the same time, I really don't like that joke though. LOL. So I believe that puts me in the clear of being a masochist, but I digress. Hold on. Detaching. When things become detached, the purpose that once was is no longer. When you unplug the microwave, the functionality of the appliance is impaired. When you rip off your wristband after the concert, even if it's the day after, the experience is over at that moment. All that remains is the memory and a few videos and photos on your phone. But in a nutshell, that's detachment. It's a process that welcomes change. When I say it this way, it's a smaller bit of the overall thing. And doing that makes it easier to digest. But all that does is give you but a bit of clarity in the moment. Digesting in small portions can provide matter-of-fact accuracy in preparation, but it does not provide the immediate gratification I know we look for when we realize that we must detach from something that isn't working anymore. That isn't working anymore. But the sooner, the better. And without commitments and obligation, the beauty of detachment exists in knowing that you can do it whenever you choose. That makes detachment become a responsibility rather than the process. Yes, it is your responsibility to detach from things when they are no longer working. But when you can accept responsibility for anything, you can appreciate the outcomes forever. No matter how hard it may have seemed in the beginning. I have cried, I have had hard days, just as much as I have laughed and I have had good days. I've matured to know that as long as I can have both the good and the bad, I am living authentically. Sobriety. I actually don't have any visual or real world experiences to drive my points home about my thoughts on sobriety, but I do understand why it is important. Sobriety is complex because, as I stated before, it feels great, even though there are times when it feels awful. It sounds paradoxed, probably because it is. It's required to be respected. I'm talking about the paradox. It took me a long time to align how I felt about sobriety with what I actually wanted in life. But then I slowly began to accept that postponing sobriety was just a sign of fear and immaturity. I choose this path today because I'm wiser. I can choose wisdom without having to travel the wrong road and find out the wisdom that warned me that there's no destination at the end of it was true. I'm aware that a day will come when my days have aged. My expectations are greater. But if I've chosen substance dependency over sobriety, it may be too late to experience the rewards of living long. I've seen it. I don't want to get to the point in life where every great opportunity has passed me by, and because I had no foundation to welcome in greater opportunities in my youth, age-appropriate opportunities pass me by as well. I want people to hear life from a sober lens and know that it's worth it and possible. Today, I understand that I can detach from everything that I don't need anymore because it is my responsibility. And I understand that my journey has always aligned with sobriety, but I made poor choices. So while both bring along their own triumphs and challenges, I accept that reality as a measurement of I accept that hold on. Let me back up. So while both bring along their own triumphs and challenges, I accept the triumphs and challenges I accept triumph and challenges and the realities of it as a measurement of authenticity. And I am excited to welcome in my maturation as a Christian woman authentically.